show at CUNY a couple weeks ago. Really clever, really well done. Look forward to finding out more about this institution. And welcome very much to Conversation. Pleasure to welcome to the program James Stanley, and he's a member of and also one of the co-founders of a very interesting theater theater group here in the United States. It's got a tremendous title. It's called the National Theater for the United States of America. It sounds very officious, and it's got a good reputation. It's growing. And James, welcome very much to Conversation.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I enjoyed. You had a presentation. Some very, very knowledgeable people from the youthful set put me in aware of, and I came over and I enjoyed it enormously. Chautauqua, you performed. Yeah. We're going to talk about that. But I wonder, maybe you could, for me and for the audience, could you share a little of your own personal background as a way of wading into this? You're born and raised, that kind of thing. And then we'll talk about the National Theater for the United States of America, theater in general, maybe the political context and that kind of thing.
Sure, yeah. I was born here in New York, and I grew up. My family moved out shortly after I was born, a couple of years after I was born, and I grew up mostly in New England and Massachusetts and then Connecticut. I went to school. I went to high school in Connecticut, and then I went to Boston University. I studied film there.
You did.
And then after that, I was kind of in and out of school because I kind of didn't know what I was doing there. And so after 2 years, I took a year off, and I went into a theater program, the National Theater Institute, which is in Connecticut. It's part of Connecticut College.
I see. Which Connecticut? What is that? They have a number of colleges in
Connecticut?
Well,
it's Connecticut College is in New London.
Okay,
and the National Theater Institute is part of the Eugene O'Neill Theater Center.
I see, yeah.
And he was born in the area, or he grew up in the area.
Did you keep your interest in film, and how did you get to film at? Was Mr. Silver there the president at Boston?
Silver was the president.
Yeah, he was
there,
a controversial character.
Yeah. John.
But you kept your interest in film, and maybe we'll get to probably a link between theater and film and television, maybe and so forth. But I'm just wondering, you still have an interest in film?
I do. I liked making the films. It was the first thing that I could kind of invest in that was really hands-on, that I really liked, and it was visual. It could be abstract, which I really liked.
Okay.
And but I couldn't take the business of it, actually, and the amount of coordination that had to be done to get anything done seems to me prohibitive. You know,
of creativity. Maybe
a little bit, yeah. I mean, I think I've grown sort of as an artist since then. You know, I was still sort of figuring out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
I'm here to tell you, young man, it's going to be like that right up until the very end.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be.
If you're doing something worthwhile.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it will be.
Yeah, it's never going to be set in stone, I don't think. You know, but that's just a little advice.
Yeah. It's healthy, though.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I think
so.
Healthy,
Yeah.
So
anyway, we got you in Connecticut in a theater.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was a very intense program. It was kind of an immersion program in which you're sort of taking the equivalent of 14 college courses.
Wow.
During a semester, you know, you wake up and you're doing yoga at 7 in the morning, and then you're in class and in rehearsals until 10 at night.
Really?
And then after that, you're memorizing lines and rehearsing on your own. It's really grueling, but also really invigorating.
Okay.
And also the people that were there when I was there, it was a really good mix of people, and I sort of found kind of a voice for myself in terms of my kind of artistic interests. And so, but I eventually went back to Boston University. I was urged by both the director of the program and my mom to get my degree.
Yeah.
And so I went back, and that's when I
back to Boston.
Back to Boston,
yeah,
and that's when I sort of took an interest in film, because it seemed to me to be sort of a nice compromise between sort of the academic work that I was doing, the writing that I wanted to be doing, and something that was hands-on and interactive, and where I was actually producing, a work.
I think you're in a marvelous space with your interests. I really think that's the emerging multimedia. That's is emerging in a way. We're coming, older people are coming out of a thing that was all, I don't know if you were ever caught up with Marshall McLuhan or some of his thinking. Or Wyndham Lewis and that. And, you know, we're coming into a multimedia world.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I think you're right on the money in terms of your interest.
Yeah.
In terms of the zeitgeist.
Right,
evolving, you know.
Right. Yeah. I just finished a program. I've spent the last 2 years. I returned to school recently. I went to NYU and studied media, culture, and communications.
At the in NYU Film School?
Not the film school, no. It's the School of Education. But the program that I was in was an interdisciplinary program that was about history and technology and cultural history and how all of those things informed each other.
Very interesting field. Man.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated with that.
Yeah, history is interesting. There's an awful lot of it.
Right.
But the idea of the thing, and you were familiar with McLuhan. And
yeah, we
media
studied
and all that.
I mean, I was marginally familiar with him before, but then, of course, in any media program, you're going to touch on McLuhan.
So he's still an iconic figure in that realm.
He is. Although he's in this program, he was dealt with some degree of perspective in terms of
passage of time.
Passage of time, and where he was, where he was kind of a prophet and where he was kind of a mystic. If a line can be drawn between them.
I don't want to make, but I used to visit with him.
Oh yeah.
About 3 years, about 68 to 71 or so. He was in Toronto. And he had the Center for Understanding Media or Technology out of an old carriage house that had been created. And he was very interesting person, very interesting. I never could get what they call, the Jewish call Hamish, or close. He was a little standoffish and that kind of stuff, but he was very interesting person.
I'll bet.
And he was taking the measure of things in a very interesting way. Another one, Bucky Fuller, have you heard of him? He was very important. I would say both of those two people are people worth paying attention to, even in understanding what's going on now and into the future still, you know. James Joyce, did you ever get into James Joyce?
Yeah,
you have?
Yeah.
Wyndham Lewis? Or I don't
Wyndham
know.
Lewis, I don't know.
Okay. But, and so you got interested in some of those things in that course at NYU then, I guess, right?
Yeah. That was just finished. That program I just finished recently.
Okay, yeah.
So,
but you did the Connecticut theater training in that, and then are you learning? I heard you say you had to get up early and do yoga or something. That's part of theater training. And how do you train for theater?
Theater, I went to a bunch of programs. I went back to Boston University after that. I did film. After that, I spent a year, working in Boston aboard the Boston Tea Party ship, dressed up as the guys were dumping tea into the sea.
They did,
giving talks on that part of history.
It's like a role.
Yeah. We were doing 11 of them per day.
Really? Yeah. That's full-time work, man.
Bring them down. You give a speech, and then you shuttle them onto the ship.
And then you had
another
tourists
guy gives a speech.
You had tourists throwing quarters?
Yeah, tourists from all over the place.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you get a group of people that don't speak any English, and you're trying to communicate this to them. And it was fun though, but it was, after 8 months of that, you're ready to leave.
Yeah.
So after that, I went to another theater program in London, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts.
In London, England?
Yeah.
How long were you there?
I was there for 10 months.
Okay.
They have a program that's 1 year long, which is kind of intensive as well. And so and that was more classically based. It was more
Shakespeare and stuff.
Shakespeare, that's it was a lot of text analysis, but also a lot of vocal training. The yoga comes in. We didn't do yoga there, but what did we do? There was a lot of movement there as well. Mime, clown, exercises, mask work. You kind of get a smattering of all the disciplines within the theatrical field.
Do you get into physical, like dance and things like that? Or Marceau? Or what was the famous mime?
Marcel.
Yeah, he's famous.
Jacques Lecoq was another one.
Yeah, okay, right.
There's a famous school in France, the Lecoq School.
Did you have any touch with that?
No, just people that I've worked with. I've worked through them. I studied with a guy here, Philippe Gaulier, who's an amazing clown teacher. And basically, the class was kind of grueling because you'd walk in, and basically the class consisted of him sort of tearing you apart. you know.
Yeah.
I have one of the other guys in the company, Yehuda, does a great imitation of him.
Oh, good.
But you know, you'd sort of get up and you'd say sort of one or two words. You'd say, "Stop, stop, stop. This is boring, very boring. You're boring me." Yeah, and a lot of the people in our company went through that class, and some others. Like
do you ever get in a thing where you see life like theatrically? I mean, I feel like I'm walking, if I may, I feel like I'm walking around and I'm seeing Academy Award performances all the time.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Just the cab driver's all upset, but he's really emoting, and he really is.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, I think I've always...
If they could have captured it on film, it would have been Academy Award for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I'm one of those people that has always felt that life is full of theatrics. I mean, whenever I dress up in a suit or go to, you dress up for an event or something, I always feel like I'm in a costume and I'm playing some, like,
right.
And then you go to Wall Street and you see everyone sort of wearing the same thing, and you're saying, wow, these people are all playing roles, and the same is true on the other end of the spectrum.
I'm going to share a thing with you personally, okay? And
Sure,
it's an advice to the young people or whatever and everything, is that I'm a Will Rogers type. I tend to like everybody, and I'd really try to find the best in people and all that stuff. But sometimes there are people that are really sort of almost beyond the pale. And, I mean, it's like, particularly it's in a situation, and what is being demonstrated is roughly what you would call arrogance. People are arrogant and so forth. And I used to do a thing, it doesn't happen quite so much. I used to do when I was younger, but it worked like this. So you come into a situation and somebody's being like that, and it would be like as if, in my mind, it's like as if there was a film, and that I'm actually looking at a film, and the camera was always over there, but then it was making a film of what's going on, and I would be laughing at the film like I would laugh at Charlie Chaplin. It was, I don't know if it was a mental trick or something, but I used to do it, and I used to say to myself, isn't it interesting? Central Casting has set this fellow in, and his role is schmuck. You know what I mean? And it was a way to deal with that rather than reacting physically in the real world. I don't know if that's maybe some sort of psychological danger zone to be in or something. Well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I've had that as, I don't know, there are situations that you get into and that you sort of can't believe sometimes, and you sort of take yourself out of it to get some perspective on it.
That's it, but it was actually like I would see a film. It's like, you're looking at a film with Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
And you're laughing at the film, and you're laughing at really maybe we should, that's for the couch, for a psychiatry thing. But a little bit on that. We have a thing, the Actor Studio here in New York, and we have a legendary figure, Stanislavski. And I mentioned to you my daughter's in theater. She's teaching out in Minneapolis. Maybe you could meet her when you get out there. But there's somebody, Mirhold. And these are theories of acting or something. Have you dealt with any of it at that level, or in your acting, either in Connecticut or in London? Or?
I mean, the various members of the company have studied with different people. I've come in contact with different sort of methods, method acting, and my classical training was something very different.
It was, yeah?
Oh, yeah. It was definitely, it was, for me, very much from the outside in, it's about the way you train your voice and the way that you enunciate. And, at the end of the day, it was really informative for me. But at the end of the day, you come back and you have to unlearn all of those things.
And lead life.
And, I think these methods are great ways into the craft of acting.
Okay.
But ultimately, once you get in there, you have to pick and choose from the different styles and methods of learning and choose what works for you, And I mean, one of my teachers he taught the Alexander technique, which is kind of a movement and support technique that you use for vocal training, I think. I was never very good at it. I couldn't stop laughing in that class.
I got the same problem. Yeah, I got the same problem.
But one of the things that he said, which, was like, you're on stage for about 10 years, and then you figure out what acting is about.
Really? Okay, that's interesting.
And I agree with that, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so when I got to New York, you know, and the people also that I worked with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we wanted to work. We didn't want to be auditioning, and we didn't want to be doing, you know,
Go to
a
cold
show
call,
for,
yeah.
you know, a weekend. We wanted to be running shows and working on something
Start a
consistently.
troupe, or they have
Right.
a repertoire in England. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have, you know, I was really impressed with England because it was really, you know, a lot of it seems highfalutin with the Royal Academy and, you know, the National Theatre. But, you know, their approach was kind of inspirational because it is really blood and guts theater. Everyone's just doing it. It's not, there's not so much of a scene as I think there is. You know, people aren't really, they don't have a Hollywood system there, so people aren't really trying to like ascend to, you know, people aren't clawing their way to the top. People are working, you know, and they're doing it in pubs, they're doing it everywhere, and people do that here as well.
Yeah.
But that was my first exposure to that real blood and guts sort of approach to it.
Yeah, I think an awful lot of good acting came out of England.
Oh, yeah.
I really do, you know, it seems but I didn't mean to lead you astray. You were in a class laughing too much.
Oh, yeah. No, well, the point was
the
that
humor side too much, perhaps.
well, the point was
character.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the class was the class was taught by a very peculiar guy who you know, and it was taught in the kind of the bell tower of this this building, and he was a guy who always had his collar up.
Yes.
And magically, you know, it was sort of whenever you saw him, you know, he was I don't know. We just came up with this backstory of him like, living in this bell tower, you know,
Right.
having these magical powers of the clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, but that story was.
I know very well what you're talking about. Yeah, right.
So anyway.
Anyway, you do that, and you've been. London was a good experience. It's worth mentioning.
Yeah,
right?
it was
10 months is a
fantastic.
long time. Do you like the London scene or the London theaters?
Yeah. I mean, I saw a lot of amazing things while I was there. I saw the original production of Killer Joe, which is this Tracy Letts play, which was kind of a big deal, I guess, at the time. I didn't realize it, I guess, until I got back here and started seeing more things and talking to people that they had also seen that production. And that was really something. I saw my first Suzuki play there. I saw King Lear done by the Suzuki Company, which was, you know, I don't speak Japanese, but it was one of those things that kind of hits you with force when you see it. You know, the power of that style of performance.
Okay.
It struck me. I saw it was Peter Brooks, The Man Who, which was based on Oliver Sacks, the man who mistook his wife for a hat.
I did a program with Oliver Sacks. He was a
Really?
beautiful person.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
He's still with us, and he's still a neurologist of the high order.
And Peter Brooks had taken that material from that book and had translated that into kind of this production, which was really contemplative and deep and interesting and simple. And that was, you know, so you know, I was seeing all of these things, and I think, you know, I hadn't really found out what I wanted to do, you know, in theater. I still wanted to be an actor, you know, which I guess I still am, but I'm a little bit different now.
You're doing some writing now, and you're doing some conceptual stuff.
Yeah. I mean, once I got to New York and I started.
Yeah, that's after London.
After London,
Okay.
I moved from there to here, and you know,
welcome. It's our game.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. But it was, you know, coming here was kind of a shock to the system also. I knew I'd always wanted to live here. But coming here and then trying to be an actor was very kind of disillusioning for me.
There seem to be a lot of people who want to do that.
Right, and there are many different ways to do that. And, you know, one of the things that we don't learn in school is the many different ways there are to do that. And so I came here and was auditioning things and trying to meet agents and doing all the things that you're supposed to do, which felt, you know, very wrong to me at the bottom of my soul.
You feel like you're at a cattle call?
What are you doing? Yeah, you do.
A lot of pink slips?
Sure, you know, it's just, you know, you walk in, you go on the camera, you're being kind of evaluated for very superficial reasons, and ultimately, you know, you're not working on something. You know, I'm sure there are actors who are, but for me, you know, my attention wanted to be elsewhere, wanted to be invested in a project, and I didn't like the projects that I was doing, and so.
You mean you were doing that to get a gig, or something?
Yeah, you do that to get a gig, and then
Uh-huh.
you do that gig to get the next gig, you know, and it's a, you know, you're jumping from, you know, landing to landing, and you know, hoping to ascend into the world of the working actor.
It's that life raft is very small, I think.
Yeah,
the people that can make it compared to the
tenuous.
number of people who want to is pretty
Yeah.
daunting, those
Yeah.
figures, you know, because only a few really make it.
Yeah, and there are people that are good at it, I think. You know, there
good
are
at
people
making it into the world?
Yeah,
or,
yeah. I think there's this very specific skill set that you have to have to make it into that world.
Okay, now
I don't see myself as having that skill set.
All right, that's interesting. Are the skill sets along the line of really good understanding and acting? Like, you have are there a lot of people who are really very good and understand and are very good, but are bypassed by whoever the casting director is, or the shot of the moment, or the celebrity? Do we overlook a lot of talent in the way the system is set up? Let's say as far as the industry is concerned.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, I
the
guess
theatrical
it depends what
industry
you
of all its dimensions, including television, film, and stage, and so forth. You know,
I mean, I think it depends.
there's a lot of real talent go wasting because it's not recognized.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so, but I think also it depends on like what kind of work you want to make, and that there are definitely tons of talented people. I worked as a reader for a casting agent for a while.
Okay.
And so we were reading, which is basically you come into a room like this.
Yeah.
I sit down with a script and you're auditioning for the part.
Oh, I
so
see.
I'm just reading the part 100 times a day.
Yeah.
And different people are cycling in, and you know, they're trying to. This was for The Lion King. They're trying to cast this one part, and I think it was Aida as well. They're trying to cast the male lead for Aida.
Wow.
And it was
that would be a plum, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it was impossible. Like it was like, you know, they wanted someone who was perfect for the role, who was a great singer, a great dancer, and someone who they'd never heard of.
And had pizzazz.
Right. And so, but you see, people are very talented, but, you know, commercial interests are very different from artistic interests.
They are, aren't they? Yeah, I think they are,
Yeah, and if you're trying to play with the form, you know, then you're doing something different than if you're trying to, you know,
meet the
create
market.
meet the market.
Yeah. Van Gogh had that problem when he painted all those.
Sure, yeah. People, what do we do with this?
We don't understand what you do.
Yeah.
You know, avant-garde people have that problem all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know who it was. I think it was Pond who said the artists are the antenna of the race. They're tapping into things ahead of the general consciousness and so forth, so they're ahead.
Yeah.
My daddy, he was a lawyer. He used to say, son, it's good to be ahead of your time, but perhaps not too far.
Too far. Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, it's a common thing. A lot of people are interested in it, and it's a very interesting and challenging way. So you get back to New York, and now you were one of the founding members of this really interesting group called, it's got a very interesting title, the National Theater of the United States of America.
Right.
It sounds like you need a drum roll.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
how did you get started with that? And maybe you could talk to that. We've got some clips from one of your recent plays. Or maybe you can blend into what we've been talking and say, how does it fit into starting your own theater troupe, as it were?
Well, you know, I was one of many people who were in the city feeling the same thing at the same time. And we sort of came together. I met a number of the members of the company and a bunch of other people who I continue to work with when I went to the Williamstown Theater Festival. A year after being in New York, a friend of mine from school had said, "Oh, you should see this show, you know, because that I'm doing this summer."
Yeah.
And so I went up and I saw the show, and that
Where's
summer.
Williamstown?
Williamstown is in northwestern Massachusetts, and
Okay.
it's a fairly well-renowned theater festival. They do, you know, pretty much straight plays with, you know, a few famous people in them, and some good sort of straight theatrical productions. But I was up there. I went to see the show, and then I decided I had to go and work with this guy. And
there was a person who helped put it together?
Well,
the guy who told you about it?
The guy who told me about it said, you should work with this director. And so I auditioned the following year, and I went up there and worked with him the following year,
Okay.
and his name is Phil Sultanoff, and he's still doing work now.
Uh-huh.
And it was through him really that I met, most of the people that I work with now.
You got a lot of people out of Massachusetts?
No, they're all from New York.
They're all from New York, but that thing...
People
that
went to this festival.
I see. Okay.
For this,
that's good.
these 11 weeks for the summer.
It's good to have such things, no? There
Sure,
should be
yeah.
encouraging, the society should be encouraging more of those.
Of course, yeah.
And giving room and venues for the talent that is there, since there seems to be such an interest on the part of the youth in getting into those kind of venues. If there's not enough venues, we should create more venues for the things that people want to do rather than what some accountant thinks they have to do.
Right.
I think that's a broad general theme that I would agree with.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Thank you. Anyway, so you were up there.
So anyway, we met a bunch of people, and I continued to work with Phil for a number of years. And then when we got back to the city, a bunch of us who were in that Act One company, which is the name of it, continued to work together in various, Yehuda, who's in the company, would be directing a show, and I would be in that. And then Jonathan, who's also in the company, who wasn't in the show that you saw, would be directing a show, and I would, I helped him produce a show. And so everyone was sort of collaborating at the same time.
Right.
And after several years of doing several shows, and actually my first show in New York, after Williamstown, was Yehuda was directing it, and Jessie, who's now my wife,
yes,
was
thank
in
you,
it.
congratulations.
And she and I played, opposite each other in this, movement and this theatrical piece that we all created collaboratively.
You use a lot of humor now. Have you
Yeah,
always,
yeah.
or do you always, or
Yeah,
not?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think it's
I can
necessary.
understand. I think it's absolutely essential.
Yeah.
If you couldn't laugh, I think I'd roll up and die.
Yeah,
because
or
there's so
feel
much
like you
to
want
laughable.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think humor is essential. It's an essential part of, what we do,
And satire.
Yeah. I mean, you have to look at the world.
Anyway, so you were here in New York, and the first thing, and is that the beginning of the National Theater?
Well, in a sense, we were doing all these different collaborations, and then after a number of years, it was with a specific show that I had written a bunch of text for it, and I brought it to Yehuda and another member of the company, Ryan Bronze, and we had access through an organization called Shishama. We had access to the Henry Miller Theater, which was on 43rd Street, and it was before it was torn down, and it was before it became the Kit Kat Club. And it was this old, dilapidated theater, in the grand style of the 1920s.
And it wasn't being used?
It was gorgeous. It wasn't being used, and it was in disrepair.
God, this sounds like a Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland movie.
Yeah, it's something that, it was gorgeous, and I had written this text for these clowns, these sort of...
You mean real clowns that are acting clowns?
Sort of, yeah, but in the style
of
the Marx Brothers,
in
the same way that they're
clowns,
better.
Yeah, right.
So, and so we decided we wanted to create this thing, and that was when we started working in a more collaborative way, in which there was really no director. It was really everyone showing up and contributing their ideas and energy toward the creation of this piece. Collaboratively, yeah. And
you think there's an advantage to that?
I think so, yeah. It's much more difficult, I think.
Without a director.
Yeah. And eventually, I think now we've gone back to sort of putting people in the place of the director, although I don't think, we all cringe a little bit when we use the word director, because it's there are many kinds of direction, and I think when people see something, they really want to say, that's why it's this way. This person here's the genius behind the act, And really, I think the strength of our work comes from the collaborative energy that's put into it, which is, yes, it's the direction, but it's also a collaborative design.
Can you have collaborative design of the director's role in terms of putting on a presentation, that the director's role is collaboratively put together, or is that a contradiction in terms?
I think it's a contradiction in terms, but it's also accurate.
A reality.
Yeah.
And it works. It can work.
It can work.
In film, the director, it's a film, for Hollywood film, big feature, that's very much a director's medium in terms of the creative part of it. And it would seem, can you see
Yeah, yeah.
Is it different with theater, do you think? Or?
Well, I think it's different with different kinds of theater.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I think there's definitely you know, kind of an auteur theater, which is, you know, like Richard Maxwell is kind of a good version of that. Like he is definitely in creative control of everything that's going on out there. You know, I mean, he's also collaborating with designers and and
stage
performers,
design and everything,
but
lighting,
But really, you know, he has kind of a unique vision that I think is incredible. You know, but it's really attributable to him. You know, in the way that he works, and the way that he organizes people, and the way that he organizes ideas and images on stage. And, but I also think that there's a lot of groups out there who are working collaboratively. You know, we have, you know, our colleagues. You know, the Radio Hole is another group. The Collapsible Giraffe is another group. The Nature Theater of Oklahoma. There are people that are working. There are directors in the group, but they're really working collaboratively. They're getting in a room and hashing out ideas and trying to come to. You know, no one's idea trumps the other person's idea. You have to say yes. Is the agreement. And you end up producing something that is maybe conflicted and maybe complex. Complex. I mean, a lot of works are complex, but maybe there are contradictions within it. But it's a result of a conversation rather than
a diktat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are people. Hitchcock once, I think, said he thought actors are like cattle. They had to be rounded up like cattle and made to do what they were to do. And there's different attitudes toward human relationships that exist within all aspects, but certainly in the theater, film, and so forth, it does. But yours is a collaborative thing. And you kind of do that. And then you finally when did you finally come upon the title? It's an inspired title.
Well, we were...
I'll say it again. The National... come on me. The National Theater of the United States of America. Yes, that's really good.
Yehuda and I came up with that name because we were trying to... We wanted to have...
You got a trademark?
We do, actually.
You do? Okay.
An interesting story, though. We came up with the name on the way to the theater because we were working at the time in the basement of a deli in Times Square, which was filthy and kind of wonderful. And in your early 20s, you're like...
Great stuff has come out of those venues.
And it was the name... It was the only name we came up with which made us laugh consistently when we said it and when we told people. And when we tried to get it, because we then tried to incorporate as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And we had these lawyers volunteer lawyers for the arts, you know, to help us through the process. And their immediate reaction was like, well, you can't have that name. And we said, well, why not? And we had this very funny meeting where we went to this, you know, this very big like law firm, you know, in Midtown. And we went up to their offices and we came bearing gifts. You know, I think we brought some flowers and Yehuda was kind of dressed up in a white shirt. And we got in there and they said, you can't have that name. And Ryan said, well, why not? Said, because then you know you're going to be raising money, and people are going to think that you're the National Theater of the United States of America. And he said, "Yeah, but then they'll see the show and they'll realize that we're not." And the humor was lost on them, but but it was a lot of fun, and we now have that.
One of the problems, I could talk to you for 1,000 hours easy. Let's be sure we stay in touch with one another over the long. But we got a couple of clips, right? So, and it's already 34 minutes into 58. So you got a sense of timing, right, as an actor, when the stage goes up, you know, as it comes down. And so we want to make sure we get those in, okay? Do you want to bring us up to date a little bit on the National Theater of the United States of America? Then we could set up these two clips we have. About 5 minutes each.
This is a piece that, the latest piece that we're working on, and it's based on the Circuit Chautauquas. Chautauqua was an institute in New York State.
Absolutely, it was huge in the 19th century.
Oh yeah. And it was basically a public education movement.
Absolutely,
you know, at a time when people didn't have
internet.
The internet, they didn't have radio, they didn't have television, and most of America lived in these small, isolated communities. And, but And it started as a Lyceum movement where local organizations would invite people to town, and there would be public lectures and debates and explanations of scientific theories, and explorers would come and talk.
Absolutely.
And then the Chautauquas sort of set up circuits, and this was kind of the development that happened that we're focusing on. And they introduced kind of a business model. And they set these circuits up so that they could serve more and more people. And they did. They served, I think, something like 10,000 different rural communities all across America.
Yeah, I'm thinking mid-19th century and on, and still going. It's still, remnants of it are still in the society, and it's a major
But for
movement.
a time.
Yeah, and part of the awakening, there was an awakening going on then, too.
Yeah. There was, we were a very religious country at the time. We had, most people lived in very small, isolated, and religiously bound communities.
Right.
And theater, actually, at the time, was not something that was permissible in a lot of part of the country.
No, theater. They had the little church around the corner. They had a church that the actors were able to go to because, on the whole, people that were in that yellow brick road of theater were thought of as beyond the pale.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're conjurers.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the Chautauquas...
They're not serious, good Presbyterians.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And so the Chautauquas going into these little towns were a very fine line because, in one sense, it was performance, you know. But on the other hand, it was presented as enlightenment and education, and that sort of thing.
It's the stuff of satire. You can use it today. You know, Colbert and Stewart do it all the time.
Oh yeah, they're
right.
Great at it. They're great at it. So and also during this time, there was a transition. You know, when these things first landed in town, the first time they were seen, they were riding that line. They didn't want to offend people. They wanted people to come back. They wanted people to feel like that they were being enlightened and educated, which was the promise of the Chautauquas. And during the time of this particular business model. You know, as people became more familiar with it, you know, those walls were broken down. So someone who came and did a reading of a Shakespeare play, the next time would bring some other people, and they would do sort of a demonstration. They would do scenes from a Shakespeare play. Okay. You know, and eventually they were doing full-out melodramas. You know, by the end of it, you know, because people were hungry for it.
Yes.
At the same time, you know, that it was. You know, people.
So you call the play, the current one, we have a clip from Chautauqua.
Yeah, we call it Chautauqua with an exclamation point.
I see. Yeah.
It's our kind of, you know, investigation of the form.
And okay, very good. And then we have a clip. It's about 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
We have 2 clips. We're going to try and get in. Right. We're 37 in, so I think we can do it. We're talking with a member and also a co-founder of the National Theater of the United States of America. And we got a clip of their presentation. It's called Chautauqua. It goes about 5 minutes. So could we set that up and run that now, then, please, in the control room? Okay. Well, now right on cue. And they're going to push the right button, and maybe we'll have to talk to it a little bit. There we go. Is that it then? Yes. Okay. Let's run the tape now then. Okay. Is it now going?
Through the water.
Talk.
Chautauqua, western New York State, a local preacher put an idea to action. That summer he welcomed a number of Sunday school teachers and their families to stay at the lake to partake in a series of lectures on religion, progressive thinking. Over the next few years, the lectures at Chautauqua became a popular summer event. They drew hundreds from the surrounding communities, and the idea took, and in time, the Chautauqua formula was imitated and multiplied in towns and farmlands in every part of the country. word Chautauqua went from being the name of a lake to a common noun used to describe these festivals wherever they took place. As each summer, rural communities across the country thrilled with anticipation at the coming of the big round tent. What you're about to witness is first the inaugural performance of a series of experiments that this company will be performing across these United States in the coming months. At each location, we will invite local lecturers and performers to perform with us in a celebration of what we hope will be a celebration of ours and their culture. But our purpose is not so much to celebrate culture as it is to analyze it. And we don't intend to reenact or memorialize this historic movement. We intend to use it, to explore the complex dynamics of this movement, of its own rise and fall. What's more, we hope to use the form and vision of Chautauqua to discover our own status as artists and thinkers and theatergoers in an age that would seem to dictate against education as a pastime, and would prefer instead the thrills of fancy dancing, fisticuffs, ironic jokes, people strutting around in short pants, swearing at each other. Where do the arts and the intellect stand in a world like this? But the days of Chautauqua were different. Chautauquas flourished across America from the 1870s to the Great Depression. They brought lecturers, scholars, explorers, scientists, magicians, elocutionists, jugglers, whistlers, dancers, from mountain resort to campground to rural community, in an attempt to strengthen the national fiber by educating and uplifting the common man, which in our case, the you. It's exciting indeed. Remember, this was a time in which travel of any kind was difficult, expensive, and often dangerous. A time when more than 80% of the country's population lived in small, isolated communities with only occasional communication with the outside world. This was information dropped into a vacuum. People were hungry for it, and they sucked it up. The interesting thing about this movement is that while it was born as a religious movement, and while the communities it was serving were primarily religious communities, the movement itself was attempting to be something else. A child of the age of reason, these Chautauquas attempted to distance themselves from the evangelical tent meetings of the day, which roamed the countryside and were known for their impassioned sermons and their swooning attendees. The Chautauquas instead were about sobriety, self-control. They were about education, civic duty, the triumph of reason over impulse. They were premised on the enlightenment principle that the universe is governed by certain fundamental laws, and that these laws are knowable, and that knowledge, the path of knowledge, is the road from barbarism to civilization. By spreading ideas about nature, history, science, art, and progressive politics, by providing a common base of knowledge amongst very disparate people, the Chautauquas could bring us together as a nation, and make us civilized, and make us strong. But to achieve this, the goal, the Chautauquas even had to distinguish themselves from the other more crass entertainments of the day, which were traveling similar routes in the form of vaudevilles, circuses. Now, vaudeville and circus with their purple and gold tents and their wild animals and their costumes and their magic and their leg shows, their embraced entertainment as a cultural value, they were considered rather low in a world that prided itself on restraint. These were forms of communication that were fanciful and fun, but capitalized on only the basest instincts of the common man. And for a time, the Chautauquas remained above all of this. But in 1904, an interesting transition took place. The Chautauquas, which had been somewhat haphazardly organized by local communities and regional organizations, were reorganized into circuits and run as businesses. And the new business model made the Chautauquas more and more efficient. And as businesses do, these new circuit Chautauquas strove to make more and more money by reaching more and more people. And in the process, whether consciously or not, these circuit Chautauquas soon found themselves emulating the same form of entertainment that they had once sought to distance themselves from. Vaudeville. Its theater, its magic, and its leg shows and appeals to the flesh. These were arts that uncontrolled and unrestrained displays of emotion that could lead to dangerous moral choices. Bending to the logic of the market, by many to compromise the essential promise of the Chautauquas. And the circuits found many critics among the cultural elite who call them depressing from their mediocrity. Nothing but wind and chaff and the laughter of yokels. Yet again. What would it? You live here, one of the cultural capitals of the world. You've come to an event created by some of the finest artists of the day. You are no doubt discerning consumers of art and culture. Then again, some of you are drinking beer. It's nighttime, you paid some money, and now you're expecting a little fun. A little reckless abandon, and you see a jiggling boob or a gruesome chicken dinner. And yet, this is an institution of art, high art, avant-garde art. So what is this? What are we doing here? Me and my necktie and you and your greasy dungarees. Taking your money, now what do we do? Which brings me to a third point of interest concerning tonight's presentation, which has to do with this space that we now inhabit and how the forces of history and the history of money have shaped this space. Now I'll address this more fully, greater place, in a moment. But before I do, I'd like to take this moment to thank our esteemed colleagues, the collapsible giraffe and the radio hole. The use of this, their theater, the collapsible home. We'd also like to take this moment to thank our many funders and supporters, a short list of whom would include the Greenwald Foundation, the New York State Council on the Arts, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, the Brooklyn Arts Exchange, the Bushwick Star, the Walker Arts Center, UCLA Live, PS 122, and of course, yourselves, without whom tonight's presentation would not be a presentation. Tonight's series will include, in addition to the history of Chautauqua itself, discussions of regional and local history, trends in medieval cartography, elements of the Enlightenment, the reenactment of historic duel, representation of dance ranging from the traditional ethnic to the high modern. You will explore the turbulent world of the food chain, see amazing impressions, hear tales of triumph from an historic battle, contemplate the dynamics of high and low culture, and if you so choose, participate in a sing-along. We only have about an hour. Hot beer. So, further business will begin with a song in the tradition of the great people of this country who have chosen to do and to make as a way of life against what would appear to be better interests.
Really funny. You wrote that. That was really clever and everything, and the pictures in the background and everything.
Yeah.
So that's the start of the presentation, right?
Yeah. We've done a number of versions of it. That was obviously the history of Chautauqua.
Yeah.
This is actually we've done a number of workshops of it, and this was kind of the cracking of the champagne bottle on this sort of mini tour that we're doing. And everywhere that we go, we're adapting it to the space. There we were in our friend's theater, and so you could tell it was a very kind of intimate crowd.
Yeah, right.
People, we had, people of the pictures of the people who were hosting us.
Right.
And we hope to do that at every venue. And
it's a movable feast.
Yeah,
right.
An adaptable one as well.
An adaptable, movable, adaptable feast. And so it's really interesting and well written. You wrote some of those pieces. There was you and the role and so forth.
Yeah, I wrote Normandy Sherwood is the other writer on the project as well. And then Jesse Hawley wrote some of the songs that are in it. And Alon Backrack did. We have a reenactment of a duel of one of the
with Hamilton and
Burr. That famous duel. Hopefully, we'll be adapting that to every place we go. We'll find a local duel.
I see. It's a movable thing and changing. One of the problems is in television, even in cable television, even in public access television, we've only got an hour.
Right.
We're going to run out of time. We got another clip.
Yeah.
So let's try and get that in. It's now 40.
Sure.
We got about 10 minutes left. So let's see if there's another 5-minute clip, and maybe you could set that up for us, please.
Well, I'm not sure. This was not the one that I had intended to show.
Really?
So so if we can. This was the original. This was the first clip that I was.
Well, then we'll show this.
Yeah. This is fun.
Let's show this.
Changes relationships. So one of the things we'll be looking at tonight is the way in which money has changed this space and this region and the relationships that we have with it and name was arrived at through the submissions of drunkards at a party. But what kind of a place is this? What kind of a place? Listen to the plans. Okay, here we are. Collapsible hall. Now, you came in here, came through a door, paid some money, probably this hallway here. Maybe you had a beer. Maybe you went to the bathroom. But then you came and you sat down here. Here am I. I'm standing in front of you. Your money is there. So you and I are about equidistant from your money. One of us could make a run for it. It's true. The more of you, closer to the door, though. This money is part of our relationship, right? So here's another perspective. Here's the larger space that we're dealing with. And once again, here are you. Here am I. There is your money. So really, on a continental scale, we're really not that very far from it at all. But neither are we. But then again, this is part of our relationship. So you've given us money. You're expecting something from me. And all these other people, we don't care about them. We care about their money. And they have no right to your money. Only we do. Let's move a little bit closer. A little bit closer. Closer still. There we are. Collapsible hole. There it is. There we are in the neighborhood. You, me, our money. It's ours together. Isn't that nice? Wherever you came from in the world, we all came together. And this money binds us, but also our interest binds us here together. But, you know, we're part of the arts community. But how long has it been like this? Not very long. 500 years? 500 years ago, this was over. Inhabited by a very different kind of people. These people were probably doing something else. They were probably hunting or looking for fire. But there's a good chance that they may have been sitting here in just this universal formation, just like you are. You there, me here. You would be expecting something from me, but you wouldn't have given me money. Or maybe you would. Or would this have been just something that we did together, such a ritual for our daily lives? It's hard to say because we would be different. We'd be a different people. For instance, I probably wouldn't be wearing as many clothes. Not a burlesque way or anything. You wouldn't have paid me to take them off. You wouldn't be wearing many either. You won't be comfortable with them. But our true knowledge of this place only goes back to about 400 years. Now here's an early map of the area. It's an early map of the area. The land on which we now sit was originally part of a larger parcel, which included Williamsburg, Bushwick, and Greenpoint. Now this parcel of land was purchased in 1638 by the Dutch West India Company from the Karnasi Indians, who famously didn't own it in the first place. In 1660, this entire area was charted by General Director Peter Stuyvesant, a round peg leg, who named it Boswick, which meant a refuge town.
Okay, well, that's another piece. They got the wrong thing and everything. It was a piece of it. So it ran a little bit over what you had in mind for this thing, but so it presents the taste of it.
Yeah, you get a taste. You know, that's we're about to go into sort of the local history and the history of the venue, and you know, we try to make it very local and give people, you know, allow people to sort of think about the space that they're in and how they came to be there and stuff. So
yeah, well, that's
keeps
good.
it alive.
Yeah, and do you try to keep a good video record going or not? Do you try to capture? It's easier all the time to do that.
Yeah,
we
try to, but you know, sometimes it's difficult. But we do have records of all of our work.
You do.
Yeah.
You mean audio?
Audio and visual.
And visual.
Yeah.
Okay, right. And then that could become, because if you're doing that, like if you're in theater, then you're doing a performance, but then if it gets onto video or something, then it has a life afterward in terms of, you
sort
know.
of. I mean,
it's a different experience.
It's
I
a
guess,
different
perhaps.
experience, you know. And I think one of the things that we try to do is we try to capitalize on that, you know, of theater, of being in a room with someone and making it personal.
Right.
You know, it's with this show we'll be performing for some of the biggest houses we've performed in, because a lot of the times, you know, especially when we were first starting out, we would go into an abandoned space and we would custom build a theater for the show.
Right.
Build the environment, you know, and usually limit it to like 20 or 30 or 40 people.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm performing as far away from you as I am now.
Right.
And that kind of intimacy is something that we've always really enjoyed.
Yes.
Because it's, you know, it's live.
Yeah, I
You
understand.
can
It's
reach out
live.
and touch it. So.
You're familiar. Remember the Living Theater with
Yeah.
Julian Beck and Judith Molina and Hannon just passed. It's sad.
Yeah.
It was really sad, but everybody's there. That's a living theater experience. And the theater is a different kind of experience than when you start getting into mediated stuff,
Right.
whether it's film or television
Yeah.
or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's really exciting. And how many of you are in the troupe? We only got a couple minutes left, but let's try to get it rounded out. You got
there's-
yourself, your wife, and then Sherwood?
Normandy Sherwood.
Normandy Sherwood.
Yehuda Duenas, Ryan Bronze, Jonathan Jacobs, who's also known as the Vintage DJ. He's an amazing DJ.
Yeah.
Mark Doskow, who's on hiatus. He's trying to work. He's trying to open a restaurant. Currently, and then we have our lighting designer is Ben Cato. We have a sound designer who works with us. Yehuda does a lot of the playback sound.
Yeah.
And we have a sound designer named Jody Elf who comes in, and he'll usually mic the room, so pick up different sounds and process them and create kind of a live sound environment.
Yeah, that's important, yeah.
And then we have a number of actors who we perform with on a regular basis.
On a pickup basis, like? Or
yeah, or they usually come in for the you know, once everything's kind of lined up, we bring them in and they perform, and they do, you know, they create their own roles.
Yeah, and when you were doing that Chautauqua thing, those films, that has to all be synced up, and you have to get that all straightened out. So somebody's getting that together, like a playlist or something of things, so that you have it as a presentation and lighting and all that. You sort of put that together, but you try to keep it in the theatrical context and everything. Well, it's very interesting. And then the venues. I saw you at the CUNY, and they had a very nice stage, and it was all set up, and everything was good. And you're going to be going to the Walker in January
we're going to,
in Minneapolis.
We're going to Vanderbilt University in November.
Okay.
November 6th we'll be there. Then the Walker, January 8th through the 10th, we'll be performing.
Wonderful, in Minneapolis, And
then February 17th through the 8th of March, we'll be at PS 122 in New York.
Okay.
And then we'll see what happens.
So some of these sort of universities and so forth, there's often very good theaters and things, and it's a good place for order to get, have presentations as an opportunity. There should be more venues. Like they used to have this thing called Chautauqua.
Right.
And they used to have a place for people of traveling troops of people who are putting on things like this.
Yeah, well, that would be great, too, to travel with our own venue and set it up. And that would be fantastic.
Dancing bears and things you could have. No, you don't want to get into a circus. Anyway, congratulations very much. Really a pleasure. Really nice talking to you. All the best to your wife. Sorry she couldn't get here. I understand you have a newborn. Relatively. And congratulations on that. And may the troupe flourish. And I'm really happy for you to have been able to come in and share with our audience your perceptions, and good luck to you all. I think it's marvelous.
Great.
And when you see the whole thing in its context, it's really funny, and it's really well done, and it's evolving, as you say.
Yes, evolving.
Your pleasure, then, to have had the perceptions of